In 1984, in Austin, Texas, a young girl and her father vanished without a trace during a routine weekend trip, plunging the mother into profound grief and leaving her with agonizing, unanswered questions for years. However, 16 years later, a junkyard owner made a truly astonishing discovery among a pile of discarded vehicles. It was an ominous find that was sure to turn everything upside down. The autumn sun streamed through the living room windows of Emily Sterling's Austin, Texas home, casting long, intricate shadows across the gleaming hardwood floor. Emily sat motionless on her floral-patterned sofa, nervously clutching the TV remote. Beside her sat her mother, Evelyn Davis, whose face mirrored the same painful anticipation and deep dread that had long become an annual, unvarying ritual on this particular day. "It's almost time," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible as she turned up the TV volume. A local news program appeared on screen, and Emily leaned forward, her gaze fixed. For 16 years, she had regularly paid local TV stations to air a missing persons announcement on this very day, the anniversary of her family's brutal disruption. As the commercial break began, Emily's heart literally froze in her chest. A touching family photograph appeared on screen. A distinguished man with a bushy mustache and kind eyes stood proudly beside a little girl, illuminated by a radiant smile. Next to this image was a gleaming red Cadillac. 16 years ago, on this very day, Jack Sterling and his 8-year-old daughter Lily vanished during a routine weekend trip, the announcer solemnly declared. They were last seen driving a red 1979 Cadillac DeVille. If you have any information regarding their whereabouts, please contact the Austin Police Department immediately. Emily switched off the TV, unable to bear the oppressive silence that had fallen over the room. She glanced at her mother, noticing the sorrowful expression etched on her wrinkled face. "I'm going upstairs to freshen up," Evelyn Davis said, gently squeezing Emily's hand before slowly rising from the sofa. Emily merely nodded, watching her mother disappear up the stairs. Left alone, immersed in her bitter thoughts, Emily walked towards the massive bookshelf that covered the entire far wall of the living room. Her fingers gently brushed the spines of several books before settling on an old, worn leather-bound photo album. She carefully took it from the shelf and returned to the sofa, opening it with reverent caution, as if it were a sacred manuscript holding priceless memories. Page after page revealed moments of past happiness frozen in time. Here was Jack Sterling proudly posing next to the very Cadillac he had saved up for so long and hard. And here was Lily on her very first day of school, full of anticipation. And all three of them at Zilker Park, their faces beaming with genuine joy. Emily's trembling finger gently traced the outline of her daughter's face in the photograph. "Where are you?" she whispered to the picture, as she had countless times before. A sudden, piercing phone call sharply broke the oppressive silence, making Emily jump. She hastily closed the album, set it aside, and went to the kitchen to answer. "Hello," she said, her voice slightly shaky, betraying her shock. "Mrs. Sterling, this is Officer Daniels from the Austin Police Department," a voice on the other end said. "I'm calling because we've just received a report of a possible discovery of evidence at a junkyard in San Marcos. We believe it might be connected to your husband and daughter's case." Emily's free hand instinctively gripped the countertop, seeking support. "What evidence?" "We'd prefer not to discuss details over the phone, ma'am. Could you come to identify what was found? We can send a patrol car for you in about 10 minutes. "Yes," Emily replied immediately, her heart pounding in her chest. "Yes, I'll be ready." She hung up and hurried to the bottom of the stairs. "Mom," she called. "The police just called. They found something at a junkyard in San Marcos. They think it might be connected to Jack Sterling and Lily." Evelyn Davis appeared at the top of the stairs, her face deathly pale. "What did they find?" "They didn't say," Emily replied, "but they're sending a car to pick us up in 10 minutes. Evelyn Davis quickly descended the stairs, her previous weariness forgotten. "I'm coming with you." They waited in tense silence until the patrol car arrived. The officer driving introduced himself as Officer Martinez, but spoke little during the hour-long drive south to San Marcos. Emily watched the familiar Texas landscape pass by, her mind racing through countless possible outcomes. Beside her, Evelyn Davis clutched her purse tightly in her lap, her knuckles white with tension. When they finally arrived at Harrow's Auto Salvage, Emily's stomach tightened at the sight of numerous police cars and bright yellow tape cordoning off a section of the yard. Officer Martinez led them through a maze of discarded vehicles to a group of people gathered around something Emily couldn't yet discern. "Detective Reyes," Officer Martinez called out as they approached. "Mrs. Sterling and her mother are here." A tall man in plain clothes turned to greet them, his expression carefully neutral, betraying no emotion. "Mrs. Sterling, Mrs. Davis, I'm Detective Reyes. Thank you for coming so quickly. What did you find?" Emily asked, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Detective Reyes stepped aside, revealing what the group surrounded. Emily's legs nearly gave out. There, crushed almost beyond recognition, yet still unmistakably identifiable, was a red Cadillac DeVille. Its once gleaming paint was now dull and rusted in places. But Emily had no doubt. This was Jack Sterling's car, the one he had saved for years, the one he had lovingly kept in perfect condition, the one he and Lily had driven away 16 years ago. "Oh my God," Evelyn Davis whispered beside her, grabbing Emily's arm for support. Emily slowly approached the vehicle as if in a trance. The car was partially crushed, presumably by a large excavator parked nearby. Police officers were photographing the car from all angles, while others appeared to be taking measurements and examining the area around it. "We can't check the interior due to its condition," Detective Reyes gently explained. "But we need confirmation. Is this your husband's car, Mrs. Sterling?" Emily walked around the car, examining every detail. Finally, she stopped at what remained of the right rear wheel. She pointed to a small dent on the chrome hubcap. "Jack Sterling hit a curb a week before they disappeared," she said, her voice detached, almost lifeless. "We were going to get it fixed, but—" Her voice trailed off. She looked at Detective Reyes, her eyes filled with tears she stubbornly refused to shed. "Yes, it's their car." Detective Reyes nodded solemnly, then gestured towards a man standing nervously at the edge of the crime scene. "That's Greg Miller, the Junkyard owner. He's the one who called us." Greg Miller stepped forward, wiping his hands with a rag before extending one to Emily. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I had no idea about this car's history. I swear, it was scheduled to be crushed this morning, and I was in my office afterward when I saw the missing person story on TV. I recognized the car immediately and called the police." "How did it get here?" Emily demanded, ignoring his outstretched hand. "Who brought it?" Greg Miller shifted uncomfortably. "That's the thing, ma'am. I have no record of it being brought in. It's not in our system at all." "That's suspicious," Evelyn Davis interjected sharply. Detective Reyes raised a hand. "Mr. Miller was the one who reported the car's presence to us, Mrs. Davis. We have no reason to believe he was involved in its appearance here. I've been trying to figure out how it got here myself," Greg Miller insisted. "We have strict protocols for accepting vehicles, paperwork, IDs, the whole 9 yards." As he spoke, a woman in greasy overalls approached the group. "I saw Owen Harrison bring it in," she said. All eyes turned to her. "Owen Harrison?" Detective Reyes asked. "Owen Harrison?" Greg Miller clarified. "He's my partner. Handles the technical side of things. He's the head technician here." Detective Reyes immediately pulled out his phone. "We need to speak with him. Can you call him?" Greg Miller nodded and pulled out his phone, dialing a number. Moments later, he shook his head. "No answer. I'll need his home address," Detective Reyes said firmly. "Of course," Greg Miller replied, pulling a small notepad from his pocket and jotting down the address. "He lives in South Austin. Here are his details." Detective Reyes took the paper and turned to one of his officers. "I want a unit dispatched to this address immediately. Have them bring Mr. Harrison in for questioning." He turned back to Greg Miller. "Is there anything else of Mr. Harrison's on the premises that might be relevant to our investigation?" "His office," Greg Miller said. "But it's locked, and only Owen Harrison has a key. We'll need a warrant to search it properly," Detective Reyes said, turning to another officer. "Get on that." Emily stood silently during this exchange, her eyes fixed on the crushed Cadillac. 16 years of wondering, of hoping against hope. And now this. The car that had last carried her husband and daughter away was here, crushed beyond recognition, yet no sign of Jack Sterling or Lily. "Let's search the premises," Detective Reyes instructed his team. "Mrs. Sterling, Mrs. Davis, if you feel up to it, your assistance in identifying any potential personal effects would be invaluable." Emily nodded silently, and she and Evelyn Davis followed the officers as they began methodically searching the junkyard. Hours passed as they sifted through piles of scrap metal and discarded items, but nothing connected to Jack Sterling or Lily was found. Eventually, they found themselves near Owen Harrison's locked office, awaiting either the man himself or a warrant that would allow them to search it. Emily leaned against the wall, weariness etched on every feature of her face. Evelyn Davis stood beside her, an arm around her daughter's shoulders, both women silent and deep in thought as the midday sun climbed higher in the sky. The sun had reached its peak when two police cars pulled into the junkyard. Emily and Evelyn Davis straightened up, seeing a third vehicle, a dark blue pickup truck, following them. The truck parked a short distance away, and a man in his mid-20s emerged. He had short brown hair and was dressed in work clothes with the junkyard's logo embroidered on the breast pocket. Detective Reyes immediately approached him. "Mr. Harrison." The man nodded, confusion on his face. "Yes, that's me." "What's going on?" "The officer said you needed to speak with me urgently." "I'm Detective Reyes," the detective said, extending a hand. "We're investigating the appearance of a red Cadillac at your junkyard, which is connected to a 16-year-old missing persons case." Owen Harrison's eyes widened slightly in surprise. "The car that was crushed this morning. I heard Greg Miller called you about it." Detective Reyes gestured towards Emily and Evelyn Davis. "This is Emily Sterling and her mother, Evelyn Davis. The Cadillac belonged to Mrs. Sterling's husband, who disappeared with their daughter 16 years ago." Owen Harrison walked over to the women, his expression suitably somber. "I'm very sorry to hear that, Mrs. Sterling, Mrs. Davis." He extended a hand, which Emily took after a moment's hesitation. "The car wasn't properly logged into your system," Detective Reyes continued. "One of your employees said she saw you bring it in. We'd like to know how it came into your possession." Owen Harrison ran a hand through his hair, sighing. "Yes, it was a strange situation. About a week ago, an elderly man brought it in when Greg Miller wasn't around, said he didn't need the car anymore, and wanted it destroyed." "Did he give you his name?" Detective Reyes asked. Owen Harrison shook his head. "No, and that was odd. He paid in cash, a decent sum too. But when I tried to get his details for our records, he just bolted. He literally left the keys in the ignition and walked away. I called out to him, tried to catch up, but he vanished." "Can you describe this man?" Detective Reyes pressed. Owen Harrison frowned in concentration. "Tall, maybe 6 feet, slender build, gray hair, though it might have been dark before. He had a mustache, thick, wore glasses, khaki pants, and a button-down shirt. Spoke very softly, almost indistinctly." Emily gasped audibly. That sounds like Jack Sterling," she whispered to Evelyn Davis, her face pale. "What?" Evelyn Davis said, a little too loudly. "But that's impossible." Detective Reyes turned to them. "Mrs. Sterling, are you saying this description matches your husband?" Emily nodded slowly, her hands trembling. "It could be. The height, the build, the mustache. Jack Sterling always wore button-down shirts, even on weekends." Detective Reyes looked back at Owen Harrison. "How old would you say this man was?" "Hard to say," Owen Harrison replied. "Maybe in his 50s. Could have been younger, though. He looked tired, worn, you know." Evelyn Davis shook her head vigorously. "It doesn't make sense. Why would Jack Sterling get rid of the Cadillac? He loved that car. He worked so hard for it. And why now?" Emily added, her voice growing stronger. 16 years later. And where's Lily?" Detective Reyes raised a calming hand. "Let's not jump to conclusions. We need to investigate further." He turned to Owen Harrison. "We'd like to search your office, Mr. Harrison. One of your colleagues mentioned you keep it locked." Owen Harrison nodded. "Yes, of course. I have nothing to hide. We just keep valuable tools and parts catalogs in there. Follow me." As they walked towards the small building that housed the junkyard's offices, Emily and Evelyn Davis exchanged worried glances. "Do you really think it could have been Jack Sterling?" Evelyn Davis whispered. Emily shook her head. "I don't know. It sounds like him. But why would he abandon the car after all this time? And where has he been? Where's Lily? I don't believe Jack Sterling would do something like that. Maybe this man is trying to mislead us," Evelyn Davis suggested, her voice low. When they reached the office building, Owen Harrison led them to a door at the end of a short hallway. He took out a set of keys and unlocked it, stepping aside for Detective Reyes to enter first. "Please wait here," Detective Reyes told Emily and Evelyn Davis. "We'll let you know if we find anything of interest." As the police entered the office, Evelyn Davis suddenly clutched her chest, her breathing becoming labored. "Mom," Emily said, alarmed. "What's wrong?" "My asthma," Evelyn Davis gasped, rummaging through her purse. "I think the stress. My inhaler." Emily helped her to a nearby bench. She found the inhaler at the bottom of Evelyn Davis's purse and helped her mother use it, watching anxiously as Evelyn Davis's breathing gradually evened out. "I'm fine," Evelyn Davis insisted a few minutes later, though her face remained pale. Just a bit overwhelmed. I apologize for the trouble. Do you want us to call an ambulance? Detective Reyes hurried over to her. Evelyn shook her head firmly. No, I'll be fine. I just need to rest a bit. While Emily tended to her mother, the search of Owen Harrison's office continued. Occasionally, an officer would emerge with an item to show Emily and Evelyn Davis, but each time, Emily shook her head. None of the items belonged to Jack Sterling or Lily. After nearly an hour, Detective Reyes emerged from the office for the last time. We've completed our search, he told Emily and Evelyn Davis. Unfortunately, we didn't find anything directly related to your husband or daughter. Emily's shoulders slumped in disappointment. So, we're no closer to understanding what happened. We've made progress, Detective Reyes assured her. Finding the Cadillac is very significant. Now we need to figure out who brought it here and why. He turned to Owen Harrison. Mr. Harrison, we'd like you to come to the station to give a formal statement. Owen Harrison nodded. Of course, anything I can do to help. Mrs. Sterling, Mrs. Davis, we'd appreciate it if you came too, Detective Reyes continued. We'd like to review the case details with you in light of this new evidence. We'll go with you, Emily said firmly. I'll drive my car, Owen Harrison offered. I'm heading back to Austin anyway. Detective Reyes considered for a moment, then nodded. All right. We'll expect you there within the hour. As they walked back to the police car, Emily supported her mother, who was still a little unsteady on her feet. Are you sure you're up to this? Emily asked quietly. Evelyn squeezed her daughter's hand. I wouldn't miss it for the world. If there's even a chance of finding out what happened to Jack Sterling and Lily, I have to be there. They got into the back seat of the patrol car, watching Owen Harrison get into his pickup truck. As the small convoy left the junkyard, the sun shone brightly in the clear afternoon sky, casting sharp shadows on the crushed red Cadillac. The fluorescent lights of the Austin Police Department cast harsh shadows on the faces of everyone in the small conference room. Emily and Evelyn Davis sat on one side of the table. Detective Reyes and another officer sat opposite, while Owen Harrison was giving his statement in a separate room. Let's go over the timeline again, Detective Reyes said, opening a thick folder. Sometimes a fresh look at old details can reveal something we missed. Emily nodded, her hands clasped tightly on the table. Jack Sterling and Lily left on Saturday morning, October 12, 1984. Jack Sterling had his own dental practice here in Austin. He was a very respected man, built it from the ground up. He had his own distinctive style, a mustache, bright ties. His patients loved him. And Lily? Detective Reyes prompted gently. A faint smile touched Emily's lips. She was 8, so bright, full of energy. She adored her father, followed him everywhere when she wasn't at school. You didn't go with them on the trip? The second officer asked, taking notes. Emily shook her head. My mother needed help that weekend. She was rearranging furniture, setting up her home after my father passed away. It was only supposed to be one night, a quick trip to Llano. Jack Sterling wanted to show Lily the fall foliage in the hill country, maybe visit Enchanted Rock. They were supposed to be back Sunday evening. And when did you first realize something was wrong? Detective Reyes asked, though he, of course, knew the answer from the case file before him. Sunday evening, Emily replied, her voice becoming detached. Jack Sterling promised to call when they left Llano. When I didn't hear from him by dinner, I called the motel. They said Jack Sterling and Lily had checked out that morning. I called his friends, relatives. No one had heard anything from them. By Monday morning, I contacted the police. Evelyn reached out and squeezed her daughter's hand. We've been looking for them ever since. Detective Reyes nodded solemnly. The investigation at the time had been thorough. Officers checked surveillance records at gas stations and stores along their route. They interviewed motel staff, diners in the area. Jack Sterling's credit cards and bank accounts were never used again. His dental practice remained untouched. Technology wasn't what it is now, the second officer added. No cell phones to track, fewer cameras. We did everything we could. And now, 16 years later, his car turns up at a junkyard, Emily said, her voice strained with emotion. Brought in by a man who matches Jack Sterling's description. A heavy silence fell in the room. Detective Reyes closed the folder and leaned forward, his expression serious. Mrs. Sterling, I have to ask, is it possible your husband left voluntarily? Emily tensed. No, absolutely not. We had a good marriage. He adored Lily. His practice was thriving. He had no reason to leave. People sometimes have secrets, Detective Reyes said softly. Lives they hide even from those closest to them. Not Jack Sterling, Emily insisted. And even if that were true, which it isn't, he would never have taken Lily from me. Never. The conference room door opened, and a female officer entered. Owen Harrison's statement has been processed, she informed Detective Reyes. He's waiting in the lobby. Detective Reyes nodded. Thank you. He turned to Emily and Evelyn Davis. We'll continue investigating this new lead. The car will be thoroughly examined, and we'll try to trace its movements over the past 16 years. In the meantime, I recommend you both go home and rest. It's been a long day. Emily glanced at her watch, surprised to find it was already past 2 p.m. Yes, I suppose we should. We can have an officer drive you, Detective Reyes offered, standing up. They headed to the station lobby, where Owen Harrison sat on a plastic chair, scrolling through his phone. He stood up as he saw them approach. All done? He asked. Yes, Emily replied. Thank you for your cooperation. Detective Reyes nodded. For now? We'll contact you if we have any further questions, Mr. Harrison. Owen Harrison glanced at Emily and Evelyn Davis. I could give you a ride. I live in the Hyde Park area. Detective Reyes looked doubtful. There's no need, Mr. Harrison. We can arrange. But before the detective could finish, a uniformed officer approached him with an urgent message, distracting him from the group. In his absence, Emily assessed their situation. Her mother was exhausted, and they faced a long wait for a police escort or a taxi. We'd appreciate the ride, Emily decided, ignoring a flicker of unease in her stomach. Owen Harrison had fully cooperated with the police, and they knew where he worked. There was no rational reason to refuse. I'll let Detective Reyes know, she added, stepping away to speak with the detective, who was still engaged with the officer. Are you sure about this? Evelyn Davis whispered when Emily returned. The police have his details. It'll be fine. Detective Reyes returned, looking reluctant but resigned when Emily informed him of their decision. I have his details, he assured them. Call immediately if there are any problems. Owen Harrison's pickup truck was old but well-maintained. He opened the passenger door for Evelyn Davis, helping her climb into the cab, then waited for Emily to settle into the middle seat. Where in Hyde Park do you live? Owen Harrison asked as they pulled out of the police station parking lot. Speedway, near 45th Street, Emily replied, keeping her tone neutral. Owen Harrison nodded. I'm on Avenue H, not far from there at all. Funny, we've never crossed paths before. But thank you again for the ride, Emily said. Afternoon Austin was relatively quiet today as they headed north. Owen Harrison maintained casual conversation, asking about the neighborhood, commenting on changes in the city over the years. Suddenly, Evelyn Davis gasped and began patting her pockets and purse. What's wrong, Mom? Emily asked, alarmed. My inhaler? Evelyn Davis said, her voice tight with worry. I think I left it at the Junkyard office when I had that spell earlier. Are you okay? Emily asked, concerned. I'm fine now, Evelyn Davis assured her. But I need that inhaler. It's my prescription one, and I just got it last week. It was expensive. Owen Harrison glanced at them. I have asthma too. If you need an inhaler, I have a spare at home. We could swing by and pick it up. Emily shook her head. That's very kind, but maybe we just stop at a pharmacy? There must be one somewhere. It's a prescription inhaler, Evelyn Davis insisted. I don't want to spend money on another one when mine is probably sitting on a desk at the junkyard. We could just go back and get it. Now, Emily asked, surprised. But the junkyard is an hour's drive. I don't mind driving you back, Owen Harrison offered. Really? It's no trouble. We can't ask you to do that, Emily protested. We can take a taxi. Evelyn Davis shook her head firmly. That would be so expensive, Emily. Mr. Harrison is offering to help us. Please, call me Owen, he said. And seriously, I don't mind. That junkyard is practically my second home. We can make it there and back in a couple of hours. Emily looked at her mother's determined face and sighed. If you're sure, Mom? I'm sure, Evelyn Davis said. I don't want to throw away a perfectly good inhaler. Then it's settled, Owen Harrison said, signaling for a U-turn at the next intersection. Back to San Marcos. The dashboard clock read 3:05 p.m. when Owen Harrison's pickup truck pulled into the auto salvage yard. The police had finished processing the scene, though the crushed Cadillac remained cordoned off with yellow tape. Only a few employees were still working, moving parts and organizing scrap metal in the distance. The three of them exited the truck and headed towards the main office. Greg Miller stood behind the counter, surprised by their reappearance. Owen, Mrs. Sterling, I thought you all left with the police hours ago. We did, Owen Harrison explained, but Mrs. Davis believed she left her inhaler here during her asthma attack earlier. Greg Miller's face softened with understanding. Oh, I see. Yes, I actually found it after everyone left. I put it in Owen's office for safekeeping, figuring he'd know how to get it back to you. How thoughtful, Evelyn Davis said. Would you mind if I retrieved it now? It's my prescription, and I wouldn't want to. Of course, Greg Miller replied. Owen, you have the key. Owen Harrison nodded, pulling a set of keys from his pocket. Emily and Evelyn Davis walked down the hallway to Owen Harrison's office. He told them he would just step inside to get the medication. Emily sank into one of the worn plastic chairs, the day's exhaustion clearly visible on her face. Evelyn Davis, however, paced directly outside the doorway. As Owen Harrison opened the door and disappeared inside, Evelyn Davis frowned, her eyes narrowing suspiciously, as if something had caught her attention. How are you holding up, Mom? Emily asked softly, sitting beside her. I'm fine, Evelyn Davis assured her, just a bit overwhelmed by all of this. They fell silent for a moment. The only sound was the distant clang of metal from the junkyard. Several minutes passed, and Emily began to feel uneasy. What's taking him so long? It's just an inhaler. Evelyn Davis shifted in her seat, then suddenly straightened, her eyes wide. Emily, she whispered urgently. When Owen Harrison opens the door to come out, look at the top shelf of the glass cabinet opposite the door. What? Why? Emily asked, confused by her mother's sudden intensity. I caught a glimpse as he went in, Evelyn Davis explained hastily. I think I saw a blue purse there, between some books. It looks like Lily's purse. Emily's heart skipped a beat. That's impossible, Mom. Lily's purse was with her when she disappeared. Just look, Evelyn Davis insisted. It's the exact same shade of blue. Before Emily could reply, the sound of footsteps announced Owen Harrison's return. As the office door swung open, both women instinctively peered past him inside. Through the doorway, Emily saw the glass cabinet against the far wall. And there, on the top shelf, nestled between several technical manuals, was a small blue purse, the exact shade Lily used to carry everywhere. Owen Harrison emerged, holding Evelyn's inhaler. Found it on my desk, he said, handing it to her. Emily couldn't tear her eyes away from the blue glimpse visible through the closing door. Owen Harrison, she said, her voice surprisingly steady. What is that blue purse you have in your office? Owen Harrison turned, following her gaze back to his office. Oh, that old thing? He spoke casually, but Emily noticed a slight tension in his posture. It looks exactly like my daughter's purse, Emily said. The one she had with her when she disappeared. Owen Harrison hesitated for a moment. Really? What a coincidence. Would you mind if I took a closer look? Emily asked, already rising from her chair. Owen Harrison seemed to consider it for a moment, then shrugged. Sure, I guess so. Nothing special. Just an old purse that belonged to my daughter. I didn't know you had a daughter, Greg Miller remarked from behind the counter. Owen Harrison shot him a quick glance. She's not with us anymore. She's, living with her mother in Houston. Emily and Evelyn Davis followed Owen Harrison back into his office. He unlocked the door again and went straight to the cabinet, reaching up to retrieve the blue purse from the top shelf. Here it is, he said, handing it to Emily. My daughter wasn't much for girly things, but she got it for a school birthday party once. She never really liked it or wanted to use it, so I just kept it here. Emily took the bag with trembling hands. It was the exact same size and style as the one she had bought for Lily in 1984, a small, rectangular purse with white trim and a simple clasp. Lily had saved her allowance for weeks to buy it, insisting she was old enough to carry it everywhere. This looks like a vintage item, Emily said carefully, turning the bag over in her hands. What year did your daughter get this? Owen Harrison shifted his weight from one foot to the other. Oh, I don't recall exactly. A few years ago. It's identical to a bag that was popular in the early 80s, Evelyn Davis observed, watching Owen Harrison's face closely. I'm surprised they still make them in that style. Yeah, well, you know how fashion comes back around, Owen Harrison said, waving a dismissive hand. Vintage isn't again, I suppose. Emily opened the bag, but it was empty. She carefully inspected the interior, running her fingers along the lining. It's in remarkably good condition for a child's bag. As I said, she barely used it, Owen Harrison replied. You can keep it if you want. I was just storing it here, collecting dust. Emily's head snapped up. You'd give away your daughter's birthday gift? Owen Harrison shrugged. She doesn't miss it. Besides, if it brings you comfort, reminds you of your daughter. Why not? That's very generous, Emily said slowly. Are you sure? Absolutely, Owen Harrison said, his expression unreadable. Didn't the police see this when they searched your office earlier? Evelyn Davis suddenly asked. Owen Harrison nodded. Yes, they looked at everything. I told them it was my daughter's, and they moved on. Just a personal item. Nothing suspicious. Evelyn Davis took the bag from Emily and turned it over, examining it more closely. Inside, she found a small white ribbon tag sewn into the lining. She squinted, then frowned. This tag has no manufacturer information, she said, showing it to Emily. It looks like something was printed here before, but it's somehow worn off. Emily leaned in to look. Indeed, the white tag had faint traces of what might once have been text, but it was now impossible to read. That's strange, she murmured, then looked at Owen Harrison. What kind of birthday gift has no tags or brand? I don't know, Owen Harrison said, a hint of impatience in his voice. A friend at school gave it to her. Emily ran her fingers over the bag's material again, noting the familiar texture and weight. It felt exactly like Lily's bag, the one she had been so proud to carry, the one she insisted on taking everywhere, even on that last trip with her father. We'll keep it, Evelyn Davis suddenly announced, clutching the bag to her chest. If you're sure it's all right. As I said, it's just collecting dust here, Owen Harrison repeated, gesturing towards the door. Now, if there's nothing else, I should probably drive you two back to Austin. As they walked back across the junkyard to Owen Harrison's truck, Emily and Evelyn Davis exchanged meaningful glances. Neither spoke until they were settled in the vehicle, and Owen Harrison had briefly stepped away to speak with Greg Miller. That's Lily's bag, Evelyn Davis whispered urgently. I'm sure of it. The tag has been altered to remove the brand and year of manufacture. Emily nodded, her thoughts racing. But how could Owen Harrison have Lily's bag? And why was it in his office? I don't know, Evelyn Davis replied. But something isn't right here. First, Jack Sterling's car shows up at this junkyard, brought in by Owen Harrison. And now this bag, which looks exactly like Lily's, is in his office. Let's not jump to conclusions, Emily cautioned, though her own suspicions were steadily mounting. It could all be a strange coincidence. Do you really believe that? Evelyn Davis asked, her gaze piercing. Before Emily could answer, Owen Harrison climbed back into the driver's seat. All set? He asked cheerfully, as if the strange encounter with the blue purse hadn't happened. Yes, Emily replied, forcing a smile. Thank you again for your help today. Owen Harrison started the engine and drove out of the junkyard. As they headed back to Austin, Emily clutched the blue purse to her lap, her fingers gently tracing the familiar contours. The day was well into the afternoon when Owen Harrison's pickup truck merged back into the northbound traffic on I-35. Emily sat in the passenger seat, the blue purse clutched tightly in her hands, while Evelyn Davis occupied the back seat, her newly retrieved inhaler safely tucked away in her purse. The silence in the truck was filled with unspoken questions. Emily's mind raced from one possibility to another, each more unsettling than the last. How could Owen Harrison have a bag so identical to Lily's? And why would he give it away so readily? These questions hung silently in the air. I can't thank you enough for all your help today, Emily finally said, breaking the oppressive silence. It's been quite a day. Owen Harrison nodded, his eyes on the road. Glad to help. Finding that car must have been quite a shock for both of you. 16 years of wondering, Emily said softly. And then to find Jack Sterling's car like that. Tell me about them, Owen Harrison said, his voice casual. Your husband and daughter. What were they like? Emily hesitated, studying Owen Harrison's profile. His expression seemed genuinely interested, but something about the question made her uneasy. Still, talking about Jack Sterling and Lily had always been a way to keep their memory alive. Jack Sterling was a wonderful dentist, she began. He had a way with patients, especially kids. They weren't afraid of him. He'd tell silly jokes and wear these ridiculous ties with tooth patterns. A faint smile touched Owen Harrison's lips. Sounds like quite a character. He was, Emily agreed. And Lily, she was so full of life, smart, curious about everything. She was a little fashionista, even at 8, always cared about how she looked, what she wore. Is that why she loved that blue bag so much? Owen Harrison asked, nodding towards the purse on Emily's lap. Yes, Emily replied, stroking the vinyl surface. She saved her allowance for weeks to buy it. It was part of an accessory collection, a limited edition. She carried it everywhere. Emily reached into her purse and pulled out a worn photograph. It showed Jack Sterling and Lily standing in front of the red Cadillac. Jack Sterling's arm was around his daughter's shoulders, his mustache prominent above a wide smile. Lily beamed at the camera, her pink outfit standing out brightly against the car's crimson paint. "This is them," Emily said, handing the photograph to Owen Harrison. It was taken about a month before they disappeared. Owen Harrison barely glanced at the photograph before returning his gaze to the road. "Nice family," he commented. She was missing her 2 front teeth, and he took a deep breath, as if savoring the thought. "That pink shirt with the rainbow." Emily froze, her eyes darting to Owen Harrison's face. He had barely looked at the photograph, not long enough to notice such specific details. And she hadn't mentioned that the rainbow was on Lily's shirt or that she was missing her upper teeth specifically. In the back seat, Evelyn had gone completely still. Emily could feel her mother's eyes boring into the back of Owen Harrison's head. "Yes," Emily said carefully, returning the photograph to her purse with trembling hands. "That's right." The rest of the ride passed in an awkward silence. Emily noticed Owen Harrison frequently glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Though each time she looked up, his eyes would immediately return to the road. She wasn't sure if he was looking at her or the blue purse she held. "It's just an inhaler." Evelyn Davis fidgeted in her chair, then suddenly straightened, her eyes wide. "Emily," she whispered urgently. "When Owen Harrison opens the door to come out, look at the top shelf of the glass cabinet opposite the door." "What? Why?" Emily asked, confused by her mother's sudden tension. I caught a glimpse as he went in," Evelyn Davis explained hastily. "I think I saw a blue purse there, between some books. It looks like Lily's purse." Emily's heart skipped a beat. "That's impossible, Mom. Lily's purse was with her when she disappeared." "Just look," Evelyn Davis insisted. "It's the exact same shade of blue." Before Emily could reply, the sound of footsteps announced Owen Harrison's return. As the office door swung open, both women instinctively peered past him inside. Through the doorway, Emily saw the glass cabinet against the far wall. And there, on the top shelf, nestled between several technical manuals, was a small blue purse, the exact shade Lily used to carry everywhere. Owen Harrison emerged, holding Evelyn's inhaler. "Found it on my desk," he said, handing it to her. Emily couldn't tear her eyes away from the blue glimpse visible through the closing door. "Owen Harrison," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "What is that blue bag you have in your office?" Owen Harrison turned, following her gaze back to his office. "Oh, that old thing?" He spoke casually, but Emily noticed a slight tension in his posture. "It looks exactly like my daughter's bag," Emily said. "The one she had with her when she disappeared." Owen Harrison hesitated for a moment. "Really? What a coincidence. Would you mind if I took a closer look?" Emily asked, already rising from her chair. Owen Harrison seemed to consider it for a moment, then shrugged. "Sure, I guess so. Nothing special. Just an old bag that belonged to my daughter." "I didn't know you had a daughter," Greg Miller remarked from behind the counter. Owen Harrison shot him a quick glance. "She's not with us anymore. She's, living with her mother in Houston." Emily and Evelyn Davis followed Owen Harrison back into his office. He unlocked the door again and went straight to the cabinet, reaching up to retrieve the blue purse from the top shelf. "Here it is," he said, handing it to Emily. "My daughter wasn't much for girly things, but she got it for a school birthday party once. She never really liked it or wanted to use it, so I just kept it here." Emily took the bag with trembling hands. It was the exact same size and style as the one she had bought for Lily in 1984, a small, rectangular purse with white trim and a simple clasp. Lily had saved her allowance for weeks to buy it, insisting she was old enough to carry it everywhere. "This looks like a vintage item," Emily said carefully, turning the bag over in her hands. "What year did your daughter get this?" Owen Harrison shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "Oh, I don't recall exactly. A few years ago." "It's identical to a bag that was popular in the early 80s, Evelyn Davis observed, watching Owen Harrison's face closely. "I'm surprised they still make them in that style." "Yeah, well, you know how fashion comes back around," Owen Harrison said, waving a dismissive hand. "Vintage isn't again, I suppose." Emily opened the bag, but it was empty. She carefully inspected the interior, running her fingers along the lining. "It's in remarkably good condition for a child's bag." "As I said, she barely used it," Owen Harrison replied. "You can keep it if you want. I was just storing it here, collecting dust." Emily's head snapped up. "You give away your daughter's birthday gift?" Owen Harrison shrugged. "She doesn't miss it." Besides, if it brings you comfort, reminds you of your daughter. Why not? That's very generous, Emily said slowly. Are you sure? Absolutely, Owen Harrison said, his expression unreadable. Didn't the police see this when they searched your office earlier? Evelyn Davis suddenly asked. Owen Harrison nodded. Yes, they looked at everything. I told them it was my daughter's, and they moved on. Just a personal item. Nothing suspicious. Evelyn Davis took the bag from Emily and turned it over, examining it more closely. Inside, she found a small white ribbon tag sewn into the lining. She squinted, then frowned. This tag has no manufacturer information, she said, showing it to Emily. It looks like something was printed here before, but it's somehow worn off. Emily leaned in to look. Indeed, the white tag had faint traces of what might once have been text, but it was now impossible to read. That's strange, she murmured, then looked at Owen Harrison. What kind of birthday gift has no tags or brand? I don't know, Owen Harrison said, a hint of impatience in his voice. A friend at school gave it to her. Emily ran her fingers over the bag's material again, noting the familiar texture and weight. It felt exactly like Lily's bag, the one she had been so proud to carry, the one she insisted on taking everywhere, even on that last trip with her father. We'll keep it, Evelyn Davis suddenly announced, clutching the bag to her chest. If you're sure it's all right. As I said, it's just collecting dust here, Owen Harrison repeated, pointing to the door. Now, if there's nothing else, I should probably drive you two back to Austin. As they walked back across the junkyard to Owen Harrison's truck, Emily and Evelyn Davis exchanged meaningful glances. Neither spoke until they were settled in the vehicle, and Owen Harrison had briefly stepped away to speak with Greg Miller. That's Lily's bag, Evelyn Davis whispered urgently. I'm sure of it. The tag has been altered to remove the brand and year of manufacture. Emily nodded, her thoughts racing. But how could Owen Harrison have Lily's bag? And why was it in his office? I don't know, Evelyn Davis replied. But something isn't right here. First, Jack Sterling's car shows up at this junkyard, brought in by Owen Harrison. And now this bag, which looks exactly like Lily's, is in his office. Let's not jump to conclusions, Emily cautioned, though her own suspicions were steadily mounting. It could all be a strange coincidence. Do you really believe that? Evelyn Davis asked, her gaze piercing. Before Emily could answer, Owen Harrison climbed back into the driver's seat. All set? He asked cheerfully, as if the strange encounter with the blue purse hadn't happened. Yes, Emily replied, forcing a smile. Thank you again for your help today. Owen Harrison started the engine and drove out of the junkyard. As they headed back to Austin, Emily clutched the blue purse to her lap, her fingers gently tracing the familiar contours. The day was well into the afternoon when Owen Harrison's pickup truck merged back into the northbound traffic on I-35. Emily sat in the passenger seat, the blue purse clutched tightly in her hands, while Evelyn Davis occupied the back seat, her newly retrieved inhaler safely tucked away in her purse. The silence in the truck was filled with unspoken questions. Emily's mind raced from one possibility to another, each more unsettling than the last. How could Owen Harrison have a bag so identical to Lily's? And why would he give it away so readily? These questions hung silently in the air. I can't thank you enough for all your help today, Emily finally said, breaking the oppressive silence. It's been quite a day. Owen Harrison nodded, his eyes on the road. Glad to help. Finding that car must have been quite a shock for both of you. 16 years of wondering, Emily said softly. And then to find Jack Sterling's car like that. Tell me about them, Owen Harrison said, his voice casual. Your husband and daughter. What were they like? Emily hesitated, studying Owen Harrison's profile. His expression seemed genuinely interested, but something about the question made her feel uneasy. Still, talking about Jack Sterling and Lily had always been a way to keep their memory alive. Jack Sterling was a wonderful dentist, she began. He had a way with patients, especially kids. They weren't afraid of him. He'd tell silly jokes and wear these ridiculous ties with tooth patterns. A faint smile touched Owen Harrison's lips. Sounds like quite a character. He was, Emily agreed. And Lily, she was so full of life, smart, curious about everything. She was a little fashionista, even at 8, always cared about how she looked, what she wore. Is that why she loved that blue bag so much? Owen Harrison asked, nodding towards the purse on Emily's lap. Yes, Emily replied, stroking the vinyl surface. She saved her allowance for weeks to buy it. It was part of an accessory collection, a limited edition. She carried it everywhere. Emily reached into her purse and pulled out a worn photograph. It showed Jack Sterling and Lily standing in front of the red Cadillac. Jack Sterling's arm was around his daughter's shoulders, his mustache prominent above a wide smile. Lily beamed at the camera, her pink outfit standing out brightly against the car's crimson paint. "This is them," Emily said, handing the photograph to Owen Harrison. It was taken about a month before they disappeared. Owen Harrison barely glanced at the photograph before returning his gaze to the road. "Nice family," he commented. She was missing her 2 front teeth, and he took a deep breath, as if savoring the thought. "That pink shirt with the rainbow." Emily froze. Her eyes darted to Owen Harrison's face. He had barely looked at the photograph, not long enough to notice such specific details. And she hadn't mentioned that the rainbow was on Lily's shirt or that she was missing her upper teeth specifically. In the back seat, Evelyn had gone completely still. Emily could feel her mother's eyes boring into the back of Owen Harrison's head. "Yes," Emily said carefully, returning the photograph to her purse with trembling hands. "That's right." The rest of the ride passed in an awkward silence. Emily noticed Owen Harrison frequently glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Though each time she looked up, his eyes would immediately return to the road. She wasn't sure if he was looking at her or the blue purse she held. When they finally reached Emily's home in North Austin, the relief was palpable. Owen Harrison pulled over to the curb and parked the truck. "Here we are, safe and sound," he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Thank you again," Emily said, her voice carefully neutral as she opened the door. "For everything." "You're welcome," Owen Harrison replied. "Let me know if you need anything." "I'm in the phone book," Owen Harrison. Evelyn Davis had already exited the back seat and stood waiting on the sidewalk. Emily joined her, and both watched as Owen Harrison drove away, his truck disappearing around the corner. Without a word, they hurried up the walkway to the house. Emily's hands trembled as she unlocked the door, and once inside, she quickly locked it behind her, sliding the deadbolt. "Did you hear what he said in the car?" Evelyn Davis asked immediately, her voice barely audible despite their being alone. "About Lily's teeth and the rainbow shirt," Evelyn Davis clarified. Emily nodded, sinking into the nearest chair, the blue purse still clutched tightly in her hands. There's no way he could have noticed those minute details from just a quick glance at the photo while driving. Evelyn Davis leaned forward, her eyes wide with alarm. "Emily, is there any chance at all that Owen Harrison could have known Lily or Jack Sterling? That he's hiding something?" "Mom, that's a terrible accusation," Emily said, though her voice clearly lacked conviction. "We have no proof. Maybe he just has really sharp eyesight. It happens. Some people have photographic memories, after all." Both women fell silent. Emily stared at the purse, unconsciously turning it over in her hands. "If this really was Lily's purse, it would have her name on it," she said slowly. "Remember, I always wrote her name in permanent marker on all her things so they wouldn't get mixed up with her friends." "I remember," Evelyn Davis nodded. "She got so mad when I wanted to write her name in this purse," Emily continued, a distant smile touching her lips at the memory. "So we decided to put an identification sticker inside instead." She looked at her mother. "Besides, that style of purse was quite popular back then. I bought her the original Mattel Barbie limited edition accessory set. We saw other kids her age with similar bags in different colors. There were even other brands that made similar models and sold them in department stores." Evelyn Davis nodded, but her expression remained troubled. "Still, it's too many coincidences, don't you think?" Emily fell silent, running her fingers over the purse's seams. The material felt right, exactly as she remembered Lily's bag, and the white tag inside with its mysteriously erased writing only deepened the suspicion. "Let's go to the antique store," Evelyn Davis suddenly suggested. "Have an expert there check this bag. If it's truly a vintage item from the 80s, they can tell us, and then we'll go to the police." Emily considered it for a moment, then nodded decisively. "You're right. Let's get an expert opinion. If it's truly from the limited Mattel collection, someone who knows vintage items will be able to confirm it." She rose from the chair, the blue purse still in her hand. "I'll get the car keys," Emily said, her voice now more confident. "There's that antique store on Burnett Road. If we hurry, we can make it before they close." Evelyn Davis also stood, her previous weariness seemingly forgotten in the face of this new lead. "Let's go. We need to know what we're dealing with." As they headed for the door, Emily clutched the blue purse tightly. Emily's sedan pulled out of the driveway into the golden light of the late afternoon. She gripped the steering wheel tightly while Evelyn Davis sat beside her, the blue purse nestled comfortably on her lap. The antique store on Burnett Road should still be open, Emily said, checking her watch. Mr. Keller has always been very knowledgeable about vintage collectibles. Traffic was moderate as they drove across town, both women speaking little. The weight of the day's discoveries hung between them. First, Jack Sterling's crushed Cadillac, and now this purse, so strikingly similar to Lily's cherished item. Do you really think this could be Lily's bag? Evelyn Davis asked softly, tracing the white trim with her fingertip. Emily kept her eyes on the road. I don't know what to think anymore, Mom. If it was Lily's bag and Owen Harrison was lying, why would he keep it all these years? About 20 minutes later, they pulled into the small parking lot of the antique store on Burnett Road, a modest shop sandwiched between a bakery and a hardware store. A bell chimed as they pushed open the door, and they were enveloped by the distinctive scent of old books and furniture polish. The store was cluttered yet organized, with glass display cases holding jewelry and small collectibles, and larger pieces of furniture arranged throughout the open space. An elderly man, appearing to be in his 60s, looked up from behind the counter, a recognizing smile spreading across his face. Mrs. Sterling, Mrs. Davis, he greeted them. What a pleasant surprise. How can I help you ladies today? Hello, Mr. Keller, Emily replied. We were hoping you could tell us something about this purse. She gestured to Evelyn Davis, who placed the blue bag on the counter. Mr. Keller adjusted his glasses and squinted at it. Quite a curious item, a child's accessory, dating, if I'm not mistaken, to around the early 1980s. He turned it over in his hands. But this isn't quite my specialty. Allow me to call Robert J. from the back room. He's much more knowledgeable about such things. He disappeared behind a curtained doorway, reappearing a moment later accompanied by a man in his 40s, with salt and pepper hair and thin wire-rimmed glasses. This is Robert J., Mr. Keller explained. He's our specialist in vintage toys and collectibles. His wife is a serious Barbie collector, so if anyone can properly identify this item, it's him. Ladies, Robert J. nodded in greeting. Let's see what you've brought. He took the purse and carried it to a better-lit section of the counter. With the practiced eye of an expert, he carefully examined the material, the quality of the stitching, and the clasp hardware. He opened it and checked the interior, running his fingers along the seams. May I ask what exactly you'd like to know about this item? He asked, looking at Emily and Evelyn Davis. We'd like to confirm if it's an original Mattel product from their limited edition Barbie accessory line from the early 1980s, Emily explained, and, if possible, the exact year of manufacture. Robert J. nodded and turned his attention back to the bag. He pulled a jeweler's loop from his pocket and examined the stitching more closely. The quality of the vinyl and the stitching pattern are entirely consistent with Mattel's manufacturing standards from that period, he said. The specific blue color was part of their Barbie World collection, if I recall correctly. He continued his inspection, checking the zipper and hardware. The zipper pull has the characteristic Mattel shape for that period. He reached for his phone. Allow me to make a quick call to my wife. She knows more specific details. While Robert J. stepped away to make the call, Emily and Evelyn Davis exchanged hopeful glances. He seems to think it's authentic, Evelyn Davis whispered. But that doesn't prove it's Lily's bag, Emily cautioned. Just that it's from the right time period. Robert J. returned a few minutes later, putting his phone down. My wife confirms that this is almost certainly from the Mattel Barbie accessory collection, specifically their 1983 to 1984 limited edition line. This particular shade of blue was only produced for about 8 months. He turned his attention to the white tag inside the bag. This, however, is interesting, he said, frowning slightly. The identification tag has been altered. Altered? Emily leaned closer. Robert J. nodded, pointing to the tag with a pen. See how the fabric is slightly puckered around the edges and this discoloration here? He pointed to several spots on the small white ribbon. It appears someone deliberately removed the writing, likely by applying heat, perhaps with a common household iron. He turned the tag to the light. You can still see where the ink was. The application of high heat weakened and, in essence, plasticized the surface of the tag. It no longer smells of burnt polyester, but the nature of the damage indicates thermal application. He pointed to the surrounding fabric. Additionally, there is minor physical damage consistent with the lining around the tag being disturbed, which also aligns with a heat treatment. Someone intentionally tried to remove any identifying information that was printed here. Emily's heart pounded. Could it have just faded naturally over time? Robert J. shook his head. No, this is deliberate. Natural fading would show evenly across the entire tag. Here, conversely, there are clearly localized traces of impact precisely where the inscription should have been. He looked at the women with curiosity. If you don't mind my asking, why is this particular purse of such interest? Emily hesitated before offering only part of the truth. It's very similar to one my daughter had many years ago. I was curious if it might be the same model. Robert J. nodded, seemingly satisfied with the explanation. Well, I can confidently confirm that this is an original Mattel product from their 1983 to 1984 collection. My wife would be happy to provide more detailed information if you'd like to bring it in sometime when she's here. Thank you, Emily said, her voice slightly unsteady. You've been extremely helpful. Robert J. carefully handed the bag back to her. Is there anything else you'd like to know about it? No, that's all we needed, Evelyn Davis replied, reaching for her purse. How much do we owe you for your time? Robert J. waved away the offer. Nothing at all, always happy to help identify a vintage item. They thanked both men and headed back to the car. Once inside, with the doors closed, Evelyn Davis turned to Emily, her expression grim. Emily, someone deliberately removed the identification from this bag, she said quietly. Emily stared at the purse on her lap, her fingers tracing the outline of the heat-damaged tag. I know. We need to take this to the police, Evelyn Davis said firmly. They need to know about Owen Harrison's connection to both Jack Sterling's car and this bag. Emily nodded slowly. You're right. Even if it's not Lily's bag, even if Owen Harrison's daughter really just got it from a school friend, the police need to be aware. She started the car, her hands now steadier as they had a clear course of action. We're going straight to the police station. Detective Reyes should be there. As they pulled out of the parking lot, the blue purse lay between them. Emily's mind was filled with questions about Owen Harrison and his possible connection to her family's disappearance. Questions she hoped the police could finally answer. They had driven only a few blocks from the antique store when Emily noticed the brake warning light illuminate on her dashboard. The car began to shake slightly, and she frowned. That's odd, she murmured, pressing the brake pedal experimentally. The response was sluggish. What's wrong? Evelyn Davis asked, looking up from the blue purse she had been examining. I'm not sure. The brake light just came on. Emily pressed the pedal again, and this time it nearly went to the floor. Something was definitely wrong. The car began to lose power as they approached an intersection. Emily quickly put on her turn signal and pulled over to the side of the road before the vehicle completely stalled. She put it in park and turned off the ignition, then tried to restart it. The engine sputtered, but wouldn't catch. It's never done this before, Emily said, bewildered. She got out of the car and walked to the front, opening the hood. No steam was rising, and nothing obviously wrong was visible to her untrained eye, but she knew something was seriously broken. Should we call a tow truck? Evelyn Davis asked, joining her daughter at the front of the car. I suppose we'll have to, Emily replied, reaching for her cell phone. So much for going to the police station tonight. As she was about to dial, a pickup truck pulled up behind them. Emily felt an internal tightening as she recognized Owen Harrison emerging from the driver's side. The man accompanying him, taller and more powerfully built, stepped out of the passenger door. Emily, Evelyn Davis? Owen Harrison called out, approaching them with a concerned look. Everything all right? I was just driving by and saw you pulled over. Emily forced a polite smile, despite a growing sense of dread. What a coincidence. We're having car trouble. The brake light came on, and then the car just lost power. Owen Harrison and his companion approached the front of the car, peering under the hood. This is my buddy Max, Owen Harrison introduced, gesturing to the other man. He's pretty good with cars. Max nodded a greeting to them before bending down to examine the engine closely. What exactly happened? Emily described the symptoms in detail while Max inspected various components. After a few minutes, he straightened up, wiping his hands on his jeans. Looks like you have a leaking brake line, he reported. And that's likely affected your transmission too. It's not safe to drive in this condition. Can you fix it right here? Emily asked. Max shook his head. No, this requires specialized tools and likely replacement parts. Owen Harrison stepped forward. Where were you headed? Maybe we could give you a ride. We were actually headed to the police department, Evelyn Davis said firmly, clutching her purse tightly. To the police department? Owen Harrison's eyebrows rose in surprise. Is everything all right? Yes, just something about Jack Sterling's car. Emily answered evasively, not wanting to mention the found purse. Well, I can call a tow truck and take your car to the junkyard. Owen Harrison offered. We have all the tools there, and I can fix it for you. It'll probably be cheaper than a regular auto shop. That's very kind, Emily began. But I'd prefer to go to the police department first, Evelyn Davis interrupted firmly. We'll deal with the car later. Owen Harrison and Max exchanged a quick glance that Emily barely caught. Mom, Emily said, touching Evelyn Davis's arm. It might make sense to deal with the car first. We can always call Detective Reyes from the junkyard if we need to. Emily's right, Owen Harrison said softly. There's no point in leaving. The car would be here all night. Let me call my friend's tow company, and we'll get it sorted. Before the women could object, Owen Harrison pulled out his phone and made a call. They'll be here in about 10 minutes, he announced after a brief conversation. The next few minutes passed in an awkward silence. Emily felt Evelyn Davis's disapproval emanating from her and could well understand her mother's sudden animosity towards Owen Harrison. Yes, the coincidences were unsettling, but Owen Harrison had been nothing but helpful since they met, and perhaps he could explain the situation with the bag to the police as well. The tow truck arrived exactly on time, just as Owen Harrison had predicted, bearing a different company logo. The driver, a burly man with tattooed forearms, said almost nothing as he hooked up Emily's car. All set, Owen Harrison said as the tow truck pulled away with Emily's sedan. You ladies can ride with us to the junkyard. We'll have that car fixed up in no time. Emily and Evelyn Davis hesitated by Owen Harrison's pickup truck. Evelyn Davis lingered at the rear bumper, squinting, examining the license plate intently. Are you coming? Owen Harrison called out, already climbing into the driver's seat beside his tall friend. Yes, of course, Emily replied, opening the passenger door. Evelyn Davis remained in place, her gaze fixed on the license plate. Mom, Emily called. With clear reluctance, Evelyn Davis finally moved towards the truck. As she climbed into the back seat, she whispered very quietly into Emily's ear, I don't like this. I have a bad feeling. We should have called the police. Emily squeezed her mother's hand reassuringly, but a flicker of doubt ignited in her own mind. Why had Owen Harrison appeared so conveniently just as their car broke down? And why was he so insistent on taking them to the junkyard? Actually, Owen Harrison, I've changed my mind, she said. It would be more helpful if you drove us to the police station instead of the junkyard. Of course, Owen Harrison replied. As Owen Harrison drove through the streets, Emily noticed Evelyn Davis hunched in the back seat, shielding her hands in her lap. She realized her mother was secretly texting on her phone, keeping the screen hidden from view. About 15 minutes into the drive, Emily frowned, looking out the window at unfamiliar surroundings. Owen Harrison, this doesn't seem like the way to the police station. Cutting through, he replied, not meeting her gaze in the rearview mirror. Less traffic this way. Max, who had been mostly silent until now, turned in his seat to look at them. His expression had hardened, all previous friendliness gone. Owen Harrison, Evelyn Davis said sharply, where are you taking us? This isn't the way. Owen Harrison's hands tightened on the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Change of plans, he said, his voice suddenly cold. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. What do you mean? Instead of answering, Max reached under the seat and pulled out a small handgun with what looked like a silencer. He also produced 2 sets of handcuffs. Put these on, he ordered, extending the handcuffs to Emily and Evelyn Davis. Both of you, now. Emily stared at the gun in shock. Owen Harrison, what is this? What's happening? Put on the handcuffs, Max repeated, his voice harsher this time. As they hesitated, he suddenly yelled, now, put them on, or I'll shoot. His sudden aggression was terrifying, making both women flinch. With trembling hands, Emily took the cold metal handcuffs and snapped one end onto her right wrist, then the other onto her left. Beside her, Evelyn Davis did the same. Max reached back again and roughly checked the security of the handcuffs. Satisfied, he then pulled 2 pieces of cloth from his pocket, wadded them up, and placed one in Emily's mouth, then one in Evelyn Davis's mouth. That blue bag, Max said, reaching back and snatching it from Evelyn Davis's lap. It's not yours anymore. He roughly shoved both women, causing Emily to fall onto the floor of the back seat and Evelyn Davis to shift sideways across the back seat. Owen Harrison's gaze met Emily's in the rearview mirror, and all pretense of friendliness vanished from his face. Quiet, he said coldly, or you'll never see daylight again. As the truck drove down an increasingly rural road, Emily's mind raced with terror. The blue bag was so significant to Owen Harrison that he was willing to commit kidnapping for it. Whatever its connection to Lily and Jack Sterling, Owen Harrison was clearly desperate to keep that information hidden. Through her fear, Emily met Evelyn Davis's gaze. Her mother's expression conveyed a clear message. I texted someone. There's hope. Owen Harrison turned the truck onto a narrow dirt road, trees closing in around them as they left civilization behind. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, silently praying that whoever Evelyn Davis had contacted would be able to find them before it was too late. The dirt road wound through dense cedar trees for several miles before opening into a clearing. In the dimming light of early evening, Emily could make out a dilapidated farmhouse with peeling white paint and a sagging porch. Nearby, a battered travel trailer sat, its once white exterior now a dingy gray. No other vehicles were visible, and the property seemed isolated from any neighboring farms. Owen Harrison parked the truck about 50 yards from the house and turned off the engine. Max kept the gun ready, aimed at Emily and Evelyn Davis, while Owen Harrison walked around the vehicle to open the back door. Get out, he ordered, roughly pulling Emily from the floor of the truck. Evelyn Davis followed, her legs unsteady after being cramped in the back seat for so long. With their hands cuffed in front of them and gags in their mouths, the women were helpless as Owen Harrison and Max led them towards the farmhouse. As they passed the travel trailer, Emily noticed it rocking noticeably, as if someone inside was actively moving around. Owen Harrison nudged Max, smirking. Looks like the boss is having a good time in there, he said, nodding towards the rocking trailer. Max laughed. Yeah, we should wait until he's done before we bring him a new headache, Max said, pushing Emily forward. These two women are going to be trouble. They continued towards the farmhouse, climbing the creaking porch steps. Owen Harrison pushed open the front door, revealing a dim interior that smelled of mildew and cigarette smoke. They were led through a cluttered living room and down a hallway into what appeared to be an office. In one corner stood a desk with an old computer and a phone, while filing cabinets lined the opposite wall. An elderly man with graying hair sat in a chair by the window, reading a newspaper. He looked up as they entered, his weathered face impassive. Watch these two, Owen Harrison instructed him, while Max removed the gags from Emily and Evelyn Davis's mouths. We're going to grab a bite while the boss finishes up. The elderly man nodded, putting down his newspaper. Don't talk to the prisoners, Max added sharply. As always. Owen Harrison produced a chain, which he used to secure Emily and Evelyn Davis's handcuffs to a heavy metal radiator in the corner of the room. Once satisfied they couldn't escape, he and Max left, closing the door behind them. As soon as they were alone with the elderly man, Emily began to plead. Please, help us. We haven't done anything wrong. My daughter is a police detective, Evelyn Davis added desperately. She'll find us. If you help us now, it will go easier on you. The elderly man remained silent, picking up his newspaper again but not reading it. Please, Emily continued, her voice trembling. We're just trying to find my daughter and husband. They disappeared 16 years ago. For several minutes, they continued to call out, begging for help, explaining their situation. The elderly man ignored them, occasionally glancing at the door as if afraid someone might overhear. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the door opened. The elderly man quickly stood, looking alarmed, but it was only him, returning to the room. He approached them with a stern expression. Quiet, he hissed sharply, or they'll hurt you. You don't know what they're capable of. Please, Evelyn Davis said, her voice now softer. I'm Evelyn Davis, and this is my daughter, Emily Sterling. We're looking for my granddaughter, Lily Sterling. She was only 8 when she disappeared with her father 16 years ago. If she's here, please, just let us know. The elderly man studied them with hard eyes, his expression unreadable. Then he glanced towards the hallway, listening for any sign of Owen Harrison or Max returning. Seemingly satisfied they were alone, his face softened almost imperceptibly. She's called Ashley here, he said, his voice barely audible. But I knew her name was Lily because that's what they called her before they changed her name 4 years ago. Emily gasped, her knees almost buckling. She's here. My Lily is here. The elderly man nodded briefly. Speak softer, he warned. Please help us, Emily pleaded, tears streaming down her face. You're different from these people. I can tell you're a good person. I could be a dead man for being a good person right now, he replied grimly. You don't know who you're dealing with. Our years are short anyway, sir, Evelyn Davis said, her voice gentle but insistent. Soon we'll die and live in another world according to our deeds. Please help us. The man seemed to struggle with himself, the conflict evident on his wrinkled face. Then they heard footsteps in the hallway, and Evelyn Davis whispered, Please, one more time. The elderly man exhaled heavily, as if making a momentous decision. "I'm doing this for Ashley," he muttered, pulling a cell phone from his pocket. With trembling fingers, he quickly dialed 911, whispered the farmhouse's location, and hung up, shoving the phone back into his pocket just as the door opened. 3 men entered the room: Owen Harrison, Max, and a large, muscular man dressed only in a dirty white tank top and boxers. His bare legs were covered in coarse hair, and his arms in faded tattoos. Emily felt uneasy just looking at him, especially when she realized this must be the boss Owen Harrison had mentioned. "What are you doing in here, Levi Harrison?" the boss demanded, his voice deep and raspy. "You're not supposed to be with the prisoners." The elderly man, Levi Harrison, took a step back, his face suddenly fearful. "These women were making noise, brother. I was just telling them to be quiet. That's all." The boss studied him suspiciously, his eyes narrowed. "Search him," he ordered Owen Harrison and Max. "If you find anything, deal with him." He looked meaningfully at Owen Harrison. "Can you do that?" Owen Harrison nodded without hesitation. "Yes, boss." Owen Harrison and Levi Harrison left the room, leaving Emily and Evelyn Davis alone with Max and the boss. The large man slowly approached them, his eyes raking over their bodies in a way that made Emily's skin crawl. "So," he said, his voice thick with something that made Emily nauseous. "Owen Harrison says you're here for Ashley." He reached out and touched Emily's hair, then leaned in to smell it. "I like older women too, not just the young ones." Emily recoiled from his touch, her handcuffs clanging against the radiator. "Give her back to us," she demanded, summoning a courage she didn't know she possessed. The boss laughed, a deep, unsettling sound. "That can't happen, but I'll tell you what I can do." He turned to Max. "Bring them in." Max nodded and left the room, returning moments later with 3 women. They appeared to be in their mid-20s, all similar in build and with long brown hair. They stood with their heads down, not looking at anyone. "Here's a game," the boss announced, clearly enjoying himself. "Pick which one is Ashley. No discussion allowed. You both have to point at the same time, and if you both guess correctly, I'll let you see her. Just see her, mind you." He grinned, revealing yellowed teeth. Emily and Evelyn Davis desperately studied the 3 women. All had similar hair color to Lily's, though they were now grown women, not the 8-year-old Emily had last seen. Emily searched their faces for any hint of the daughter she had lost, any echo of the child she had raised. One woman, standing slightly to the left, had a small scar near her right eyebrow, exactly like Lily's from when she fell off her bike at 6 years old. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she raised her cuffed hands to point. 1, 2, 3, point, the boss yelled. Emily and Evelyn Davis both pointed to the same woman, the one with the scar. The room filled with the boss's laughter. "Well, I'll be damned. Family really can tell each other apart, can't they?" He gestured to the other 2 women. "Take these 2 away." Max led the other women out, leaving the boss, Emily, Evelyn Davis, and the woman they had identified as Lily/Ashley in the room. "Lily," Emily whispered, her voice breaking. "Darling, is that really you?" The young woman did not respond, nor did she even look up. Her expression remained blank, her eyes distant, as if she were deeply withdrawn. "Now for the real fun," the boss said, his voice turning menacing. "Ashley, strip." Emily and Evelyn Davis gasped in horror. "No," Emily cried. "Please, don't do that to her." "Leave her alone," Evelyn Davis added, her voice trembling with anger and fear. The boss ignored them, focusing on Ashley. "I said, strip now." To Emily's horror, Ashley began to comply, her movements mechanical, her expression still vacant. She showed no emotion, no resistance, as if she had performed this act countless times. The boss vocalized his approval, then offered a new idea. He turned to Emily, noting the possibility of expanding his options. He then approached Emily and unchained her from the radiator, leaving the handcuffs on. Emily was moved to the center of the room, positioned between Evelyn Davis and Ashley. The boss focused on Emily, then gave Ashley an instruction concerning her. Emily protested and spoke to Ashley. Ashley hesitated but then moved closer to Emily. Emily tried to pull away, but she was held in place. The boss stated his intentions while Emily struggled to free herself. During the ensuing events, Emily's clothing was damaged. The boss continued his actions towards Emily. Suddenly, the door burst open, and Owen Harrison appeared, his face pale. Owen Harrison reported the presence of police outside. The boss froze, his expression changing. He pushed Emily aside and grabbed Ashley's hand. He demanded to know how they had been found. Owen Harrison reported that the property was surrounded. The boss expressed his displeasure, then turned to Owen Harrison. He ordered Emily and Evelyn Davis to be moved, planning a retreat through the backyard. Owen Harrison expressed doubt, stating that the exit was blocked as the perimeter was sealed. The boss took an item from Owen Harrison. He declared his intention to act alone, focusing on Emily, who was in the center of the room. Before he could complete his action, Levi Harrison entered the doorway and positioned himself in front of Emily. An event occurred, and Levi Harrison fell to the floor. The boss attempted to fire, but the weapon misfired. He expressed his frustration, threw the item aside, and demanded another. Soon, a sound indicating forced entry echoed through the room, followed by commands from law enforcement. Within seconds, the room was filled with officers who took positions, aiming at Owen Harrison, Max, and the boss. Max and Owen Harrison raised their hands. The boss made a move towards an officer. A shot was fired, and the boss was hit in the thigh. He reacted with laughter. He asked a question concerning his experience. Another officer fired, and the boss was hit in the shoulder. After this, the boss dropped to his knees, his expression changed, but he maintained his defiant posture. Officers began securing the scene. The three men were handcuffed, and paramedics attended to Levi Harrison. Emily, freed from her handcuffs by an officer, approached Ashley, who remained motionless, her gaze vacant. Emily spoke to Ashley, trying to make contact. However, there was no response or recognition. Ashley's past experiences had left significant consequences. Evelyn Davis, also freed, joined them, expressing emotion at the sight of her granddaughter. She informed Emily that Ashley had been found. While paramedics attended to Levi Harrison and police escorted the detainees, Emily embraced her daughter. She resolved to support Ashley in overcoming the trauma she had endured. The farmhouse property was illuminated by the flashing lights of emergency vehicles. Officers worked to secure the scene and gather information, while paramedics attended to the injured. Emily watched as Owen Harrison, Max, and the man referred to as the boss were led out of the house in handcuffs. Owen Harrison kept his head down, Max stared straight ahead, and the boss, despite his injuries, continued to react as he was placed in a police car. A female paramedic offered Emily an examination, guiding her towards an ambulance. Evelyn Davis was already at another vehicle, where a medic was examining her wrists. Emily allowed herself to be led, her gaze fixed on Ashley/Lily, who was being attended to by another paramedic. Ashley/Lily was covered with a blanket and sat motionless on a stretcher. The paramedic informed Emily of a minor shoulder injury that required bandaging to prevent complications. Emily barely heard her, asking about her daughter's condition. The paramedic noted that physically, Ashley/Lily appeared unharmed but was unresponsive and would require specialist evaluation at the hospital. Emily nodded as her bandage was applied and she was covered with a blanket. Evelyn Davis, having completed her examination, approached them, expressing concern for Lily. Emily reported that Lily was in shock and didn't recognize them. Evelyn Davis advised giving her time, considering what she had endured. Their attention was drawn by a commotion near the farmhouse. Paramedics hurried with a stretcher towards an ambulance, moving Levi Harrison, who had sustained injuries. A medic held an IV bag over him. One of the paramedics reported the need for urgent transport due to significant fluid loss and the necessity of procedures. While Levi Harrison was being loaded into the ambulance, a young officer approached Emily and Evelyn Davis. He explained that the medics wanted to immediately take their daughter to the hospital for specialist examination, and also recommended that they undergo a more thorough checkup. Emily agreed, expressing concern for Levi Harrison, who had saved her life. The officer replied that everything possible was being done for him, and he was conscious. As they headed towards the ambulance where Lily was waiting, another paramedic approached them. He reported that Levi Harrison had been able to provide some information. His name was Levi Harrison, and Owen Harrison was his son. Emily was surprised. The paramedic also added that Owen Harrison worked for Ben Carter, who was Levi Harrison's half-brother. Evelyn Davis expressed sympathy. The paramedic urged them on, stating that detectives would speak with them at the hospital. Emily and Evelyn Davis got into the ambulance next to Lily, who remained motionless and silent. As the ambulance began to move, Emily gently touched her daughter's hand, whispering words of comfort. There was no response or recognition. Emily and Evelyn Davis exchanged worried glances. The ride to the hospital passed amidst sirens and flashing lights. Upon arrival, they were separated. Lily was sent for examination, while Emily and Evelyn Davis were directed to another area for their own checkup. After their examination, they were led to a consultation room. Emily sank into a chair, processing the day's events. She expressed surprise that they had managed to find her daughter after so many years. Evelyn Davis agreed, noting that it felt like a miracle, but Lily had endured so much. Emily closed her eyes, trying to distance herself from what she had witnessed. They sat in silence until Detective Reyes entered. Detective Reyes expressed relief that they were all right, calling it a shocking day. Emily immediately asked about her daughter. Detective Reyes replied that doctors were still examining her. Physically, she was unharmed, but there was concern about her psychological state. Evelyn Davis asked about Levi Harrison. The detective reported that he was in surgery, and doctors were optimistic as the injuries had not affected vital organs. Emily asked about the arrested men, Owen Harrison and Ben Carter. Detective Reyes confirmed that all three were in custody. The blue bag had been seized as evidence, and an investigation was underway regarding the junkyard owner's connection to Owen Harrison's activities. Evelyn Davis insisted on receiving information about Jack Sterling and Lily in the events of 16 years ago. Detective Reyes cautiously replied that information was being gathered. She reported that Ben Carter was a wanted individual who had evaded capture for decades, moving under different names and harming people for his own amusement. She added that he frequently held young women and girls captive, controlling them. Emily felt a wave of discomfort at the thought of her daughter being under this man's control for 16 years. She asked how Ben Carter had crossed paths with Jack Sterling and Lily. Detective Morales explained that Owen Harrison had been cooperative since his arrest, believing his time had come. He recounted that he was 10 years old when it happened. He was with Ben Carter, his stepfather, whom he respected, seeing him as a strong male figure, unlike his father, Levi Harrison, whom Owen Harrison considered weak. Detective Morales, consulting her notes, continued, according to Owen Harrison, they were near Marble Falls when they saw Jack Sterling's car. They pretended to need help. Jack Sterling stopped and offered them a ride, and Carter claimed Owen Harrison was his son and feeling unwell. Jack Sterling even allowed them to stay in the adjoining room at their motel in Llano. Emily pressed a hand to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. This was typical of Jack Sterling, always ready to help and trusting. Detective Morales gently continued. That night, Carter drugged Jack Sterling's drink after they had spent the evening at a local diner. As soon as Lily fell asleep, he committed an act against Jack Sterling in the motel bathroom. Evelyn Davis let out a quiet cry, and Emily squeezed her hand tightly. The detective continued. Carter staged the scene to give the impression of Jack Sterling's voluntary departure. He took Lily, telling her that her father had been hurt and was in the hospital. They left in a car that Carter had hidden nearby. Over time, he convinced Lily that her mother had also disappeared. With forged documents and constant relocations, he kept her hidden, changing her name to Ashley. Emily asked about her husband's body. The detective replied that Owen Harrison and his friend had confessed to staying behind to eliminate all traces. Carter had disposed of Jack Sterling's body in a limestone sinkhole and hidden the car deep in a wooded area, where it remained until recently. Evelyn Davis asked how the car ended up at the junkyard. Detective Morales explained that Owen Harrison had brought it in, knowing where the car had been abandoned. Under Carter's influence, he decided to move it to the junkyard for destruction, hoping to erase any connection to his uncle, believing that 16 years was enough time for that. Emily sat in stunned silence, trying to process the information. Her husband had been murdered on the very first night, and her daughter had endured 16 years of captivity. Detective Morales quietly stated that they would try to locate her husband's remains based on Owen Harrison's information about the location. Before Emily could respond, the door opened and a doctor entered. He reported that her daughter had been moved to a private room. She was still not speaking, but her condition was stable, and the presence of loved ones would be beneficial. They followed the doctor through the hospital corridors to a quiet room where Lily lay in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. She looked small and fragile, despite being a grown woman. Emily slowly approached the bed, Evelyn Davis right behind her. Emily quietly spoke to Lily, taking her hand, telling her they were there and she was safe. There was no response. Emily continued to speak gently, telling Lily she was safe, that Carter and Owen Harrison had been caught, and that no one would hurt her anymore. Minutes stretched into an hour as Emily and Evelyn Davis took turns talking to Lily, recalling happy moments from her childhood and assuring her of their love. And then, just as Emily was beginning to lose hope, Lily parted her lips. She whispered that she was sorry she was so broken, her voice hoarse from long silence. Tears welled in Emily's eyes. She replied that it wasn't her fault, and that now they were together, and that was all that mattered. Lily said she missed her dad, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. Something in her voice reminded Emily of the 8-year-old girl who had embarked on that fateful trip. Although Lily was 24, a part of her seemed to be stuck in that moment. Emily replied that she missed him too. A nurse appeared in the doorway. She reported that Mr. Harrison was asking for them. He was in the next room. Emily hesitated, not wanting to leave Lily, but Evelyn Davis touched her arm, offering to stay with her. Emily followed the nurse to the adjoining room, where Levi Harrison lay in a hospital bed, his chest tightly bandaged. He looked pale and weak, but his eyes were alert. Levi Harrison spoke to Emily, his voice barely audible. He apologized for his son and for himself for remaining silent all these years. Emily approached his bedside. She simply said that he had saved her life, and if not for his courage, they would still be on that farm and might never have found Lily. Levi Harrison closed his eyes briefly. He expressed the opinion that his son had always had a negative view of gentle and kind men, considering it a weakness. Emily slowly stated that when they had flagged them down on the road, pretending to need help, and her husband had assisted them, they had seen an opportune moment in him because he was kind. Levi Harrison nodded weakly. He expressed hope that he might someday be forgiven. Emily reached out and gently squeezed his hand, stating that he had risked his life to save them, and there was nothing to forgive. Leaving Levi Harrison to rest, Emily returned to Lily's room. Her daughter had fallen asleep, her face looking peaceful for the first time since they had reunited. Evelyn Davis sat by the bedside, watching her granddaughter. Emily took a chair on the other side of the bed, reaching out to take Lily's hand. After 16 years of searching and hoping, they had found her. The path to healing would be long and difficult, but they would walk it together, day by day. Watching her sleeping daughter, Emily silently thanked the circumstances that had led them to that junkyard today, to the crushed red car and the blue purse that had finally brought her daughter home.